Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations at the Edge. I am not your typical host today. My name is Zev Vieira. I lead product and customer success at Growth Institute. And with us today, we have one of our thought leaders of the Edge, Jorge Calle, who is also one investor of Growth Institute. So it's a huge honor to have you here today, Jorge.
Hello,
To give
thanks for having me.
everyone, thank you for being here. And to give everyone a brief intro on Jorge. So Jorge is an entrepreneur, author, board member, and passionate about history. He was trained in leadership with business and military leaders, including Navy SEALs. And one of his companies is startups, through which he helps train successful leaders and companies. So his work is mainly focused on leadership, culture, and strategy. Jorge's new course with the Growth Institute, which can be available through the Edge, will be released very soon. And the course is called Change Your Story, Change Your Results, and really just brings you around the concept of the hero's journey and how you essentially have to become who you're trying to become. You have to transform into that leader. So Jorge, how are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you, sir.
Thank you for being here. So we're going to go straight into questions. We're going to do this for about 20 minutes. And if you're joining us live, if you have any questions, feel free to start dropping any questions here on the chat. And we'll address that after the initial 20 minutes. So Jorge, getting right into it. In your experience, having the right mission, vision, values is the core to growing a great company. Can you give us some background on how you came to that conclusion and why is that you are helping organizations do that right now?
Okay, yeah. So what I really believe is that leadership is the key to growing a great company. And having one mission connected to a vision and guided by values is the base over which to build and grow a successful and enduring business. So we at startups call this having a business creed, which is a unified story of mission, vision, and values. And it's one of the most important leadership tools that you can have. You know, a few days ago, I was helping an entrepreneur. He's still in college, right? And the teacher asked him to develop these three elements. So I asked him if he understood why. And his answer was no. He doesn't know what they're for. So he did the work, but in the end, there's no connection to the business model, no connection to the culture, the operations of the company he wants to build. And when I work with members of the board or of boards of directors, I also like to ask them about these elements in their companies or similar elements that they might have. And they usually tell me that they have them somewhere. Usually they've paid a lot of money for their work, but they don't know what it is. No one knows what it is. And I'm talking about teams of 15 people at the highest levels of leadership in a company. And therefore, for them, there's also no connection to the business model, to the culture, to daily operations. So it's a thing that you notice from the academy to real business of every size. And it's something I've lived myself as a student, as an employee, with my own businesses. I did the work, but I didn't know why. And I didn't understand the connection. So in reality, it had an impact in everything we did. So to your question, how did I come to this conclusion? Well, I think that I just paid attention to history and to successful leaders from the past and the present. I noticed that there have always been missions carried out successfully in history, from the Spartans holding back the Persians at the Pass of Thermopylae to the Allies taking the beach on D-Day in Normandy. And there have always been great visions, from the one that Alexander the Great shared with his army in Troy, to the one that Martin Luther King Jr. shared at the National Mall in Washington. And there have always been also values guiding teams successfully, from the Bushido Code to the Samurai.
So I assume that's where storytelling comes in then. So why is storytelling or stories so important in business?
Yeah, so listen, I noticed that there's a connection between these elements. For example, imagine I said this to you. If we take that hill bravely, creatively, and with patriotism, then we will end war and bring peace to our countries and return to our homes and families. So in one sentence, you find all three elements in a simple and clear manner. And with that, you could align and unite an entire army. So how come we in business can't do this? How can we make it so confusing? And that's why we often don't get alignment. We don't get unity. And I see this in my work all the time, right?
So where else in business would you think stories then have a big impact?
Yeah, well, listen, just to tie this to your other question, I think that story is integral because for millennia, stories have moved the hearts of people. And when you move hearts, the minds are open to listen and to be moved as well. And then the hands can get to work because people can now connect what they're doing to why they are doing it and how also from an ethical point of view. So it's very different to tell your people that as a team, we aspire to be the market leaders in 5 years. It's very different to tell them that than telling them, as Nelson Mandela did, for example, that I cherish the idea of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. So man, that's completely different for the one who's listening, for the one who's looking for a reason to wake up every day and devote most of their time to work. So a story that, as you were asking, impacts every part of business, gives people the opportunity to be part of it, to build it, but also to gain something from it. And that makes it inspiring. And that's important, because if you get to play a role that connects to something bigger, then a story can help you find meaning. And that's crucial. So why that is why giving people a narrative that they care about is an integral part of leadership and what we do at startups, for example. Where else do stories have a big impact? Stories have a big impact in many places in business. A storytelling expert will tell you a lot about that, but in this case, this particular story, the business creed, that's composed of a mission, vision, and values can and should influence everything in your company. So from the grand strategy of your business, your creed helps you verify that it's constantly aligned and that the business model is consistent. A good vision, for example, allows you to take goals from it to be used in strategic planning for years, if not decades. It becomes the source of strategic planning for everyone in your company. A good mission, for instance, will guide decision-making at every level in a very simple manner. And a unified mission will allow you to give mission clarity to every single business unit, department, team, person within that team, and with vertical and horizontal alignment. So the values, for example, they allow people to prioritize their actions in real time. So you don't have robots in your company, but you do have empowered execution guided by a consistent way of behaving. And that entire business grid, guided by a consistent way of behaving, will go to your entire organizational design, connecting people, processes, setting. And those are a few of the places where the story will have a big impact on your businesses, among many others.
And I assume also externally, right? Because when this story is so well formulated internally, it also has a big impact on the way your customers are going to interact with your brand.
Internally, it becomes your brand, your culture. Externally, it becomes your brand. What people perceive from your culture, from what you are actually doing.
Perfect. And so you have a great process for building a company vision. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yes, thanks. Well, we want companies to end up with something truly inspiring, but at the same time, something that's practical, that can truly improve results. So we always begin by differentiating vision from long-term goals, which is what companies usually end up with. So you end up with to be market leaders by X date, or to achieve X percentage of market share by 2025, something like that. But in the process, we explained that a goal is like a 100-meter dash. There's a clear finish line, and as soon as you cross it, you can measure it, your performance, your results, but that particular dash ends. It doesn't look like a vision, because a vision is to imagine the future in your mind as during a dream. So it's more like an endless marathon that is made up of infinite 100-meter dashes. So to say that our vision is to be market leaders by X date isn't so imaginative or inspiring for everyone in the company. However, telling your people that thanks to their work, hundreds of thousands of people who never finished high school will become devoted learners of great literature, philosophy, and science, or the prison inmates will learn about Plato and Darwin and Faulkner and ask for more. You know that the best teachers in the world will teach 1,000 times the number of students they now reach, or that they will share the success of the company, making large numbers of them wealthy. Those things are powerful in the hands of leaders. So in developing the vision, we always recommend leaders not to get bogged down on writing, on editing, because that's secondary in the process. The dream must come first. So we help them dream the external. You know, what do you envision for customers, for society, for the planet, etc. And dream the internal. What do you envision for your staff, for your culture, your shareholders, your setting, etc. And we encourage them to dream with an infinite mind, but also to give details and specifics to their vision. Mm-hmm. And something that's very important, we help them make sure that everyone in their company can be participants of the vision and also beneficiaries. Those are key aspects of that process.
Oh, okay. So with them being participants and beneficiaries, they're part of building the story and benefiting from this vision. What's the hardest part when you're coaching leaders to do this, to bring this mission to life? What's the hardest part there?
Okay, well, the thing is that part is key, because if people aren't participants, then what are they, right? And if they gain nothing personally from all that work, then why should they do it? Why even consider giving it their best? I was, just to tell you a story, a quick story. I was recently in a board meeting, and one of the VPs presented the new vision of the company that they had developed with a consultant. And the vision talked about business growth, about shareholders, geographical expansion, business units, and organizational structure. It said nothing about the people that worked in the company. So I asked about it, and the VP answered that the part that said organizational structure referred to the people. But you see, that's the problem, because it doesn't. And the language you use, not only writing, but everywhere as a leader, sends a clear message to what is important in the business. And if you, as an employee, are just a number or just a cog in the organizational structure, then it's really hard to connect your personal work and personal growth and take everything you've got to your work. And so no wonder that we've been talking about a great resignation in the past years. So mission, vision, and values, they're not a checklist. When I talk about our people becoming participants and beneficiaries of the company vision, I mean it. I mean it from the most humane point of view. It's important that if we're going to ask people to follow us somewhere great, that they feel that they can help build that greatness. But also, and especially, that by doing so, they will also gain something, because that's a basic human need. What's in it for me? So I wouldn't say that it's the hardest part, or that it is very hard. Because if you care about your people, they will be part of your vision, one way or another. And if they are, well, the rest is just a matter of consistency, of leading by example, of treating people as people, not as numbers, and making that evident in every single process, every meeting, every feedback one-on-one. So the main challenge isn't making your people participants and beneficiaries of the vision, but aligning your leaders under a unified philosophy of leadership that believes in all of this. And leadership, that is the main challenge, and that's the key to success. That's what I would say.
Okay, and so you just gave an example of a board meeting on how they're a bad example of how they structured it. So we've been talking about this outdated corporate jargon of mission statements forever. Why are companies still getting this so wrong?
That's a great question. So, you know, when the US military, with all its might, fought Al-Qaeda in Iraq, they were having a very bad time, because Al-Qaeda didn't operate like a conventional hierarchical institution. And the thing that changed it all was a narrative that General McChrystal communicated to everyone. He essentially told them a story that began with we are at war, and in war there are winners and losers. And the story continued, and as part of that story, he gave a single mission to the entire team of thousands of people. And that one mission, the narrative, was the beginning of the change that was needed. But that's because the mission was a real one. It wasn't just something that a consultant wrote and that looked amazing on the wall. It was life and death, right? A life and death thing. It was what needed to be done every single day by everyone in order to win. So do our people know what needs to be done every single day in order for everyone to win in our company? Sometimes we can't answer that. So why are our companies still getting this so wrong? I think it's because from academy to business, in most ways, this is still a checklist. It's something students, entrepreneurs, leaders are just supposed to do. And sometimes even governments ask for it. But we don't understand why it is important. And with that mindset, I think that we've lost the mission as a foundational element, and we've lost a crucial leadership tool. And many times we pay people to come out with a mission. Sometimes we help define it, but often as part of the checklist. So we write it, but we don't know what to do with it. We don't know how to lead with it. That's the problem.
And could you share what makes a good mission versus a bad one?
What makes a good mission versus a bad one? Yeah. Well, good missions are clear and they are simple, and bad missions, they aren't. So when you're given a mission like taking the beach, everyone from the lowest to the highest levels understands what needs to be accomplished by the end of the day. It's simple and it's clear. I mean, we need to take the beach. That's the mission. But if, for example, you're given a mission like synergizing our core competencies to achieve unprecedented levels of innovation and transformational growth, while leveraging our thought leadership and strategic partnership to deliver cutting-edge solutions that exceed customer expectations and create sustainable value for our stakeholders and communities. Now, those are real missions. Now, would you understand from your job what it is that you're supposed to accomplish by the end of the day?
Yeah.
And I would say it's almost impossible to know.
Yeah, you're
and
great
that
at
happens
creating
to
the
a lot
charm.
of companies. It happens to a lot of companies. And if you don't understand the mission, how can you execute it? You can't. So it's normal that we get people rowing in different directions in our businesses. And also, good missions in business, they are enduring. And what I mean by that is that they aren't defined by a product or a current trend, right? They allow the business model to be flexible over time. So they let you adapt without compromising create consistency. So in that way, if, for example, if your mission is to rent videotapes in a physical store, then you're going to lose the game to Netflix, right? But if your mission is to entertain the world, whatever your taste, and no matter where you live, then you might transition from a blockbuster model to a Netflix model. And who knows what else in the future, but you'll have a better chance of enduring in business. That's it. That's another very important thing. So clear and simple, and a mission that is enduring in time.
So we're getting to a 20-minute mark, and if anyone who's joining us live here, I see many members of the Edge and MBD. If you have any questions or any comments you'd like to share with us, feel free to do that. Still have a few other questions to ask you, Jorge. So you mentioned a lot cascading the mission to different business units and different levels of the organization. And I think this is a very interesting concept, especially when a lot of the companies that are in our community, there are companies that are using scaling up. And
right.
One of the hardest parts is cascading priorities and KPIs and keeping everyone aligned. So
right.
Can you tell me a little bit more about this, taking this one step forward with the mission?
Yeah, yes. Well, for instance, when you give your business the mission of taking the beach, then everyone has one mission. But then not everyone contributes to that mission in the same way. So you may have landing craft drivers, you may have pilots, you may have infantry soldiers, etc. And the mission of the landing craft drivers isn't the same as the pilot's mission. They have specific missions of their own. But the important thing is that each of those missions contribute to the one mission of taking the beach. So if the landing craft drivers don't accomplish their mission of getting the troops to the beach, and the pilots don't accomplish their mission of clearing the ground for the troops, then the overall mission won't be accomplished. So when everyone has one mission, but then unit businesses, departments, teams, and individual roles also have clarity of their own missions, and they understand how those missions connect to the main one, then you have alignment. You can empower execution, and chances of success, they are improved. So my recommendation is to begin defining that one mission, but then give clarity of mission to the rest of your organization, from business units to departments to teams to individual roles. Make sure that all those missions connect to the main one, and never stop talking about those missions in every meeting, every conversation, every email, every chat, because after all, results depend on the daily accomplishment of the mission. So it all comes down to whether each person knows what needs to be done, why, and if they're doing it, and how can we as leaders help them do it in a more effective way, right? So that's cascading the mission, and it's extremely useful.
And I would like to move a little bit into the values now. And could you share examples of companies who are doing a great job at living their values and making it a part of a daily activity and decision making?
Yeah, absolutely. Feeling comes to mind. I mean, there's an architecture firm called Feeling, and one of their values is we care. So they use that phrase 100 times each day. There's not a single meeting, discussion, or decision where that value isn't present. So you heard them talk, if we're going to cut the budget, are we caring? With that design, are we caring? This decision regarding salaries, are we caring? And in their answers, they always remind themselves that they care. And that single value has allowed them to choose not only their customers carefully, it has taken them to have such levels of customer service that they have never paid for advertising since they started more than a decade ago. It's all been word to mouth, and it's one of the most profitable architectural businesses I've ever known. And there's Inveos. Inveos is a company that lives by a value called above the line. And above the line is a value that means for them that there are no excuses and there's no blaming. There's just responsibility, solutions, and initiative. And they also talk about that value all day long. So if the situation with a customer isn't easy and the team starts complaining about it, then someone suddenly says, hey, I think we're below the line here. And everyone immediately understands, and they switch to solution mode. And I've noticed that people who work there have even taken that value to their homes. And they honestly tell you that it has changed their entire lives. So that's another example. And well, finally, take, for example, Patagonia, right? One of their values is environmentalism, to protect our home planet. And they live by that value. I mean, Patagonia has donated millions of dollars to environmental organizations. It has implemented standards to reduce its impact on the planet. It encourages customers to repair and reuse their Patagonia clothing instead of buying new items. It's pretty amazing. So those are a few examples of companies that are really living their values and making them a part of daily actions. Yeah.
And so you also say that the values need a priority order, right? That you're able to prioritize them. Why is that?
Yeah, well, it's not enough to identify values. The order of priority is very important for daily activity and decision making, because people in every level will experience situations where there will be a conflict between values. So how should they proceed when that happens? So a conflict between values can be solved through a hierarchy of values. So if we have a clarity of priorities, everyone will know best how to act. But not only that, but you'll have a better chance that two people that are thousands of miles apart from each other will make decisions in a similar way, right? So it's a tool for building the culture that we need. For example, a company may have a value of profitability. So maximizing profits and reducing costs in order to generate returns for shareholders. However, that value might conflict with another value such as environmentalism. So promoting environmental sustainability by reducing waste. Okay, so in such a case, a hierarchy of values can help the company prioritize its values and make decisions when they come into conflict. For instance, the company may prioritize environmental sustainability above profits, or vice versa. And this will then guide the decision-making process for everyone when conflicts arise. For instance, if the company prioritizes environmentalism, they may decide to invest in environmentally friendly processes and products. Now, even if this means lower profits in the short term. On the other hand, if the company prioritizes profitability, they may choose to implement cost-saving initiatives over sustainability initiatives. So it's not that both values are important to the company. It's just that in either case, having a clear hierarchy of values can help the company navigate conflicting values and make decisions that align with those values. That's why that's so important to have a hierarchy of values. Yeah.
I believe that I lost you for a little bit, but now I can hear you back. I wanted to ask if it's possible that you don't have a priority list. Have you seen companies work with values well, even without the prioritization of the value?
You can have that, but eventually you will have a conflict of values. And when that happens, you are going to get people rowing in different directions, making decisions in different ways, even if the situation is the same. So you're going to experience situations where one people is going to do something, another person is going to do something completely different. So that's why having a hierarchy of values can help people make decisions in a more similar way, right? So even if all values are important to the company, I mean, having that hierarchy of values is going to help everyone navigate those conflicting values and make decisions in a way that is aligned, right? So that's why it's important.
And as you say, not having to have everyone being robots, just executing and micromanaging. It's all about empowering every layer of the organization to make a decision based on those values and that hierarchy.
Completely different. Yeah, right. We don't want robots. I mean, leadership. It's all about human beings. Companies are in the walls or social media. They're not the systems, or they're not they're nothing about. They're human beings, and we don't manage human beings. We lead human beings. So that's why, yeah, we don't want robots. We want to empower people that can execute in a decentralized way based on a clear direction that we're giving them. Yeah, so it requires a lot of things, among which trust is the most important, and that takes time. But that's what leadership is for. Yeah.
And to wrap up, you talk about the great resignation, and you talk about transforming it into the great commitment. Can you just share your thoughts there, and that will be our last question for today.
Yeah. So, well, the Great Resignation describes a recent trend of employees leaving their jobs, right? And for many reasons: cost of living, limited career opportunities, wage stagnation, hostile work environments, job dissatisfaction, etc. But I believe that this resignation goes much further. I believe that because even many of the people who are still present in our companies really are absent in so many ways. I mean, they show no commitment, no initiative, no accountability, no performance. And the fact is that many things haven't changed in history. I mean, people have always had the need to find an answer to why they are fighting for whom. And they're valid questions. I mean, why? Because if we as leaders continue to respond to them with come work for my increase in sales, come work for my increase in market share, or my improvement in earnings per share, so do we really expect them to give our businesses the best part of their time and their abilities? I mean, why should they? Why are we giving our people that touches their hearts so that they want to offer their hands as well for our cause? And that's where the story, the business creed with your mission, your vision, and values is decisive. Because as leaders, it is our responsibility to invite our people to a story worth living, a story that helps produce better results for everyone. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, the story is not enough. I mean, you can write the best story, and if no one reads it, it does nothing. And you can read it, but if you don't implement what you learned from it, then it does nothing for your results. So a good story requires personal and collective leadership if it is to produce results in real life. So at the end, leadership is the key. And if that business creed that is composed of a mission, a vision, and values is your battle standard, then we as leaders need to take that standard and raise it, make it visible for everyone so that everyone can follow it. And so that if it is in danger at some point in time, everyone will run to protect it. And that is how we win the quarter. But that's also the way in which we'll help our businesses endure for decades. And well, that's the idea.
And we'll end with these thoughts. Thank you so much, Jorge. Thank you everyone for watching live or the replay. See you next week for another Conversations at the Edge. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.